Welcome to the Encores Club, where each month a panel of experienced, i.e. a little bit older, music fans dive into new music. As always, Encores Club is hosted by me, Velvet Rebel, and Rhonda, who, dare I say, is the more heavy metal side of the Daily Durani blog, the world's longest running Daily Duran Duran blog going. Our special guest today is Shelly Hedrick, a mainstay on the Las Vegas rock and roll scene with a degree in entertainment business. Shelly has done it all, literally, from stagehand to talent buyer. She has seen every aspect of the music business and somehow manages to go to every single concert in Vegas. At least I think so. I lost my microphone there. I got so excited about Shelly being on air. Shelly, is it safe to say you go to about, 100 shows a year normally?
Yeah, pre-COVID, we were averaging about that, yes.
That is crazy. I've seen you at shows from really everything from Lady Gaga to Depeche Mode to Cinderella. I mean, we do it all.
Yep. There was actually 1 week that I attended Iron Maiden, New Kids on the Block, and Nine Inch Nails with Soundgarden, all in 1 week's time.
That is absolutely crazy. Which was the best of those?
Oh, Soundgarden. Just because it was Soundgarden. You know, I've seen Maiden several times, love them, and I've seen New Kids a lot too. But so there wasn't a bad show among it, don't get me wrong, but because it was the last time I saw Cornell live, it's always gonna stand up.
Very cool. Well, each week on Encores Club, our ever-changing panel of guests, we discuss 2 new albums, usually something released in the last few weeks. This week, we are whetting your appetite for destruction and turning your amps up to 11 with some melodic rock albums featuring some famous names from the 1980s. First up this week is the latest from Enuff is Enuff, which is pretty much Chip Enuff's solo project at this point. Brainwash Generation builds on 2018's Diamond Boy and does what the band has always done, deliver pop metal hooks galore. Have a listen here. So that was the latest from Enuff is Enuff. Rhonda, what was your impression?
I'll give it to you, but first you have to tell me what you're drinking.
Well, in honor of hair metal, I mixed it up a little bit today. I am drinking a Ricky Rocket, named after the greatest drummer in hair metal history, Poison's Ricky Rocket.
Awesome.
I love tiki drinks. I love rum, but to mix it up and it's hair metal, I had to go whiskey. So it's basically a Jungle Bird, but instead of rum, I'm using a small batch bourbon and a vanilla spiced whiskey. So it's got the punch of 80s hair metal, but still fruity and tiki, which I love.
I love that. You're having way more fun than I am. So I like it. That's good.
I'm not working today, so it's a good day.
That's a good day.
So
let's see. Oh, I'm sorry, Jason. Here's the thing. I liked that the album seemed like it was going to follow a theme. The title, Generation Brainwash, struck a real chord with me, and I had pretty high hopes going into it, I have to be honest. I rarely look through like the titles of the music and all that before I listen, but I did this time, and I thought, I wonder if this is going to, follow along in some sort of cool theme. I wish I had not done that. I was very surprised at how bubblegum pop the first song was. Fatal Distraction, kind of, I don't know. For me, it wasn't a strong opener. I'll just say that. I feel like this is a band that kind of has suffered from the identity crisis of having replaced their singer. I know Chip Enuff has taken over, and there's a whole legion of fans that adore him, and I don't have a problem with that. I just feel like there was like Enuff's Enuff with Donnie and Enuff's Enuff with Chip, and the two don't really mesh well. But the thing I like about this album is they brought Donnie V back to do Strangers in My Head, which actually ended up being my favorite song on the album. And I'm not that big of a fan to where I could say that, I always followed his music or I always followed Chip's. It wasn't like that. It just turned out that on this album, that's who I liked, or that's what I liked. That particular song kind of ticked off a lot of the boxes for me, and I felt like, it's a song definitely worth streaming, if nothing else. overall, though, I have to be honest, I felt like the album kind of lacked. The songs are not really as bright or as anthemic as I feel like they could be. I felt like the production was really kind of muted and muddy at times, likely due to the fact that I feel like the top guitar line was used as the melody, and it was mixed very weirdly with his vocals, with the vocals throughout, but definitely with Chip's. I felt like his voice kind of gets toned down in the mix. It just didn't sound right. And I felt like also that it really kind of showed that, to me, at least for me, Chip isn't a very strong vocalist. His voice isn't really strong enough to be heard over the top. And I really do feel like that kind of hurt the record. That said, I still enjoy the album. There's a few of the songs that, like I said, Strangers in My Head, even Fatal Destruction kind of sticks with me. Like, I can still hear the music, and so although I would say that overall it wasn't one of my favorites, it also was something that I probably would still, listen to and stream. And I think, it has a place. Let's just put it that way.
Cool. Shelley?
I have a bit of a different take, only because I didn't have high expectations. I don't mean that in a really rude way, because I have seen Enuff live so many times, and I've been around Chip and his smell of patchouli and weed, and so it's exactly what I expected actually out of this. Ultimately, I was like, okay, yeah. There are some tracks, and I was trying to remember which one it was right now off the top of my head. It's hold on give me a second. The Broken Love track is very ethereal and hippie, and that is exactly what I expect out of Chip and that band. Think Fly High Michelle, but even more flowy and flighty, and everything. I found real interesting what you were bringing up about Fatal Distraction, because the guy from Cheap Trick, Dax Nielsen's on this track. This track is Cheap Trick. This is Enuff trying to be Cheap Trick. And that was, I'm like, so ultimately it sounded like a Cheap Trick song to me, and I actually really enjoyed it. But that's what it is.
I always feel like the band always kind of like they're either doing Cheap Trick or like the psychedelic Beatles thing.
It's exactly how I feel. Yes.
And it's like, what band are you? It's like you said, Rhonda, it's an identity crisis at the time. I think that's
like
really hampered the band in a way, because they were supposed to be hair metal, but they really weren't.
No. That's true.
I always feel like this identity crisis has been there. Like they've always had these like Beatles psychedelic harmonies. That was a great analogy.
Yeah.
And then these other elements, like they just are so influenced by so many different styles of music. And yeah, just because they had the hair and they wore the makeup in 1989, they got lumped, and that's just who they are. And so overall, I enjoyed it. I really liked the Donnie B song. I did enjoy that one quite a bit. And It's All Vain with Mike Portnoy. But I'm also a Mike Portnoy fan.
You're a Portnoy fan, so that makes sense.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. And there's something about that genre, that sleaze rock, glam rock. As long as it's done decently, I'm going to probably enjoy it, because there's going to be some crunchy hooks in there, things I can get into. My note on Broken Love was it's Fly High, another attempt to be Fly High Michelle. So I totally agree with you, Shelley, there. I just thought the tempo drags a bit. Like, the songs weren't slow, but they weren't fast. There was just kind of like this medium pace to it. I was like, come on, either hit it into high gear or just do a ballad. But it was just kind of not sure where it was going. There was one line, I forget what song it was, but you're 23, I'm 48. It opens with, and I'm like, that's creepy.
Yeah, that was uncomfortable.
I know, and David Coverdale did that. I love the new Whitesnake album. I think it's a fantastic record, but the lyrics, it's just like, at some point, I wish these guys would kind of understand that it's not cool anymore to be chasing 23-year-old groupies, and it's okay not to try to be that guy anymore. Which, when we get to the next album, I think they do a better job of avoiding some of those cliches of the 80s. But that one kind of left a bad taste in my mouth. I was like, ooh, don't need to go there. But
overall, and that was a catchy song.
Yeah, and that's the problem with it. It's catchy. And there was enough catchiness to it where I'll probably go back and listen to this record a few more times. But
Yeah.
And I'm going to run out to the store and get it. I'm sure I'll come across them in concert at some point. They actually just announced a tour in a few months. They're going up and down California with whatever version of Faster Pussycat exists now. But I mean,
I saw that. Yeah.
realistically, that tour is probably not going to happen. But those bands also appeal to a demographic that might pack a rock club and go anyway. So who knows?
It's possible.
Interesting.
The one track I will say that really kind of made me roll my eyes was Drugland Wonderland.
Yes.
Drugland Weekend.
Weekenderwood.
Could we put every drug overdose cliche into a song? Like, come on.
And
I was like, okay.
That's what it was. Well, we'll come back to it a little later in the show. Every show we go back and we give every album a number of candles, 16 candles, because we're from the 80s, being the ultimate compliment. So we'll see where we end up with that one. But next up is the second album from the melodic rock supergroup, Tokyo Motor Fist. Disclaimer, I absolutely loved their self-titled debut, so I went into this one with high expectations. Tokyo Motor Fist is a supergroup and that features Danger's Ted Poley on vocals and the extraordinary guitar work of Steve Brown from Trickster. The band embodies everything that made the 80s glam metal scene so much fun. Have a listen here. And that was the latest from Tokyo Motor Fist. Shelly, you've actually met Ted Poley. I'm going to put the picture up right now for those watching at home. They're looking at you and Ted at Vamped here in Las Vegas. You've always been my go-to friend when it comes to 80s glam metal. Do you think maybe Danger and Trickster got the short end of the stick from critics in the late 80s?
They absolutely did, because they came in at the end of, or right towards the end of the quote scene, and as the 90s were really starting to take off, and they were just buried, right? They were high production albums. They all and everything was as slick as it can be, and raw and rough and tumble was coming. And yeah, they did. But I've always loved both bands, always.
So I think they get overlooked in a way that's maybe a bit unfair, because I think they both did some great stuff, and Tokyo Motor Fist I think takes the best of both. And for me, something about it works. The hooks are just so huge. Their debut album, if you heard it, I almost think they were doing it kind of like just for fun. Let's see if people even relate to this. And it was kind of tongue in cheek, but this one, I think they took a little more seriously, and it shows. But for me, Steve Brown, I mean, jaw-droppingly good on guitar. I have 3 friends named Stephen Brown, so I'll never forget this guy's name. I have Steve Brown friends all over the world for whatever reason. But yeah, this album for me is just one of my favorite albums of the year. Bands don't make these kind of rock and roll albums anymore, so I got excited. Rhonda, what do you think?
I loved it. I did. This album was such a great treat for me. Truth be told, I was a bit of a hair band fan back in the day, but I came in really late. I mean, I don't think I was really starting to listen to it until grunge hit, and then I went back because I was like, grunge is not my thing. I like that other stuff. And so I started listening to it, and I think the thing for me is that to be in 2020 and have a melodic rock band make any kind of a ripple in the scene, I can totally get on board with that. There's just so few artists that want to do anything with melody right now. I mean, no one does it. And so it was really nice to hear this. Since we've been doing the show, every week feels like a struggle, or I should say every month feels like a struggle, because I'm trying to I'm trying to deal with the pandemic, but I'm also trying to broaden my horizons and stuff. And this brought me right back to my own wheelhouse. And I'm like, I can finally listen. There were songs, I was taken on this huge journey, because there were songs like Youngblood that brought me right back to I don't know, probably the end of my high school years. And then others like Blow My Mind. It had this modern country feel to it that I loved. There's even some blues in there. Decadence. Decadence has a blues style. I liked Sedona because they had horns. I mean, the musicianship is just evident. You can't even argue with it because it's there. And I appreciated that. On the other hand, I actually found a few places where the lyrics were interesting choices. Like there's this lyrics in Lions that kind of stuck out to me. It's no matter how hard the times are, our pride will find the girls. It was cringy.
I didn't hear that line. Ooh.
Well, it just reminded me of like, wow, I guess I'm really not that far out of high school after all, you know? And so that made me laugh. But it was just really nice to have an album that I didn't have to struggle with. So I was happy. What about you, Shelley?
I loved it overall. I really did. Like you said, it's not often you get to hear big, full, catchy AOR in this time in our lives. And what I loved about this one, and maybe this is me showing my age, that, you know, where I'm like, it feels modern, but it also feels like a throwback, and that, you know, but it's not dated, or maybe I'm just dated. I don't understand what dated is anymore. But I mean, I could picture myself in my high school years, like cruising in my car, listening to this.
Oh, yeah.
And then also picture myself today at a concert trying to sing these anthemic songs live along with them. So I thought it was overall great. And like, you know, when you have Steve Brown's production, and I've lost the guy that he brought in to, I can't remember his name right now, that helped produce this album. And Steve Brown wrote most every song on this album. I mean, you have that, and then you have Ted Poley's vocals, which are a unique to themselves. And then these two session guys who have been around forever. They are hired guns for Billy Joel and for Doro and everyone. I mean, he runs the gamut. So they're just quality. So I overall really, really loved the album. And I had several tracks that I liked more than others. I did really like Youngblood. I thought it was a great start to an album. And I couldn't actually, I couldn't always pick up all the lyrics, and I was having a hard time finding them online to follow along. So I didn't catch some of that stuff that you caught. And I thought the Lion song was the title track is a really nice uplifting song for 2020.
Oh yeah.
Minus your lyrics.
Yeah. And credit to them. I mean, to put a 7-minute ballad out, you know, that's not something in the 80s a lot of bands from this genre would have done. The fact that Dennis DeYoung of Styx is on it, I thought was cool. And the band I kept going back to, and I knew it was kind of a one-off band, but talking supergroups, I kept going back to Bad English. You know, they remind me a lot of Bad English, where they brought together all these great AOR guys and just made a great rock and roll album that didn't rely on any one particular style. It's like, let's just write great anthemic rock and roll songs and have some fun doing it, not take ourselves too seriously. And I think Tokyo Motor Fist is onto something now. I'm hoping once we get through this pandemic, we can see them on tour, because this is one of the bands on my bucket list. Like, I have to see these guys live.
It would be great, because I mean, you want to sing along to these songs. That was the way I felt. And I mean, and how many of these songs do you can picture lighters up in the air and phones up in the air. I mean, it's all there in your head.
And if they throw a little Danger and Trickster into the set, oh my God.
It would be great.
I'm in.
I think, you know, it's funny because I think a lot about critics and how they respond to things. And I think it could be relatively easy for a lot of critics to just stand up and say, you know, we're going to pass them off because they're just an 80s or a 90s band iteration. And, you know, that would be really unfair, I think, in this situation, because the music is there. I mean, the talent is evident. And I really hope that somebody grabs onto it and goes with it, because they're good. I mean, I think they have staying power for sure. They're going to definitely reach an audience that no other music is reaching right now, for sure.
I think that whole style is a lot more respected now as we get older. And I think about a show I actually saw with Shelley. We saw Poison, and Cheap Trick was supporting them. And Cheap Trick,
yeah, I saw that show. When
you go back to ground zero for all this hair metal, I mean, it was the Cheap Trick power pop hooks that really underlined so much of it. And Cheap Trick's obviously Rock and Roll Hall of Fame revered. All these other bands that were influenced by that, now they're touring with them. But I remember in the 80s, if you like Cheap Trick, you're probably from the 70s and older. Whereas I was a little kid into Poison and stuff, all I knew about Cheap Trick was The Flame as a little kid. So, but then as you get older, you realize it all kind of comes together, and great rock and roll played by great musicians is undeniable. So let's just enjoy it.
Totally.
Absolutely.
I do have one minor complaint about both. And this goes to pretty much everything I've purchased off of the Frontiers label, and they're both on Frontiers. I think the artwork is just garbage. I just can't stand the artwork for these albums, and everything I get from Frontiers has just got this weird aesthetic to it that just doesn't click with me. And I'm looking above my head, Cinderella, Poison, all these classic album covers. For me, it's just something about Frontiers. I just never get the artwork.
I'm starting to think that they just feel like that. I mean, and I'm not using Frontiers as an example. I just think the industry as a whole, they don't feel that the importance of that anymore. Like,
and it could be true because they don't do vinyl either. So maybe it's going to be mostly downloaded and no one's going to notice.
Right.
So.
It's probably not an area that they spend a lot of money on, because why would they? Because
that's me dating myself. I still like to see.
Yeah, but you know what? I mean, we're the Encores Club. We're trying to get other people our age and younger interested in the music, and if that is what affects us, then I think it's fair to bring up for sure.
Absolutely.
And we are the Encores Club, and it is time for a curtain call where we go around and give our final rating on each album. We also say whether we're going to keep the album on rotation. Are you going to buy it, maybe just stream it, or you're going to kind of forget about it? Shelly, we're going to start with you. First album, Enuff is Enough. Out of 16 candles, how many candles would you give it?
I probably will be around 11.
11?
Yeah, I liked a couple tracks. I could see myself listening to again. They come through town, more than likely I'm gonna go again. That's not so. I didn't hate the album by any means. I liked it. I just didn't love it.
Cool. I'm actually even lower. I'm only 8 candles. I thought it was kind of average for what it was trying to do, and I mean, I didn't hate it. I'm probably wouldn't even stream it again, so I'd have to put it in the forget about it bin, but I'm glad I listened to it nevertheless. Rhonda?
I went lower. I went with 7, just
Okay.
one lower. I went with 7, and I said at first I was like, okay, maybe I would stream it, but you know what? I don't think I would stream it again. I have to be honest, so forget it.
All right. How about Tokyo Motor Fest, Rhonda?
For them, I gave them 12 candles, and it was a definite buy for me. Buy it.
Cool. I'm at 14 candles with them, and I am going to buy it. It's not on vinyl, so I'm going to just order the CD. I don't have the original album, their self-titled debut, on CD either, so I was waiting for this to come out. I'm just going to do a little bulk order from Frontiers and get both of them. Shelly, Tokyo Motor Fest.
I was 14 on that one as well, and I really, really wish they had it on vinyl. That's what I would prefer. But I'll probably, well, actually, if I don't even know this, my husband's probably ordered on CD. I don't even realize it. He does that a lot. So there's that.
True story. I've been to their house and they have a lot of duplicate copies of albums. It's fantastic.
It happens.
So Frontiers, if you're out there listening, consider vinyl. We want to buy your albums.
Yes.
Yes.
So, but thanks again for tuning into Encores Club. Thank you, Shelly, for being our very special guest during this very difficult time in the world. We appreciate you coming on.
Thanks, Shelly.
Thanks for having me.
Cool. And you can find us on Twitter at Encores Club. Let's talk music, and we'll see you again. We have a bunch of great episodes coming up soon. I know the new Killers album is on Rhonda's radar, so expect an episode about that. We'll see you again soon. Everyone stay safe.
Bye.
Bye.